What would you do if the one person you long to see didn't recognize you? Before we begin a story about the battles we fight abroad, and even harder ones we fight coming home, I have to ask, where are you watching from today? Drop a comment down below and let me know. A quiet room, your daily commute? Wherever you are, get comfortable. Because this is where life splits into a before and an after. James Miller hadn't been home in years. Years spent in faraway lands, where the sun rose over foreign deserts and burned hot against his skin, and where the nights carried a quiet he could never shake, a quiet that echoed through the empty tents, through the stillness of distant camps, and through the hollow spaces of letters never sent. He stepped off the train, boots tapping against the platform with a deliberate rhythm, each echo a reminder of how long he'd been away. Every familiar sound of the station, the distant chatter of strangers, the occasional clatter of luggage on tile, the smell of coffee wafting from a nearby kiosk, and even the rustle of newspapers held in waiting hands, felt strangely foreign. It was all familiar, yet he felt like a visitor in his own past, as if time had kept him away not just from this place, but from the life that once belonged to him. He had imagined this moment countless times. He had pictured running into familiar arms, laughter mingling with tears, the warmth of embraces he longed for, and yet now, standing there, the world seemed to hold its breath. Every movement of the crowd, every flicker of emotion on the faces around him seemed heightened, and he wondered if he would ever find that connection again, if someone would still be waiting for him, or if life had quietly moved on without him. Families reunited in waves of emotion around him. Couples hugged, some crying, some laughing, their joy spilling into the air. Children tugged impatiently at their parents' hands, their small voices rising in shouts of delight. The warmth in those embraces made his chest ache, stirred something deep inside, a longing for the simplest things, to belong, to be home, to be seen not as a soldier, but as a man returning to his life. He wondered if he would feel that warmth too. Would someone be waiting for him? Would his heart recognize a place in the world he had longed to return to? Or had life moved on, leaving him behind, a relic of battles fought and moments lost? For years, he had fought battles he couldn't even tell anyone about. He had stared down fear, stared down danger, and stared down the loneliness that gnawed at him even in the company of fellow soldiers. And yet, the hardest battle of all might not have been overseas. It might be waiting for him here, in a place he had called home, but had never truly understood until now. The train doors hissed open and the crowd shifted, the motion bringing with it the murmur of lives intersecting, overlapping, carrying stories he could not yet hear. James took a deep breath, steadying himself, letting the moment settle like the first light of morning. He didn't know what or who he would find, but one thing was certain. This day, this moment, could change his life forever. Some journeys, the longest journeys, lead us back to the place we never truly left, our own hearts. And James knew with a sudden clarity that his heart had been waiting here all along. Among the crowd at the station, a small figure stood almost unnoticed. A little girl, no more than 6 years old, clutched a worn teddy bear tightly to her chest. Its fur was faded and threadbare from years of companionship. Yet she held it as if it were a lifeline, a tiny talisman against the unknown. Her golden hair fell in messy waves around her face, and her wide, searching eyes darted nervously from one end of the platform to the other. She shifted her weight from foot to foot, glancing at the tracks every few seconds, her small fingers gripping the teddy bear as if it could give her courage. There was a quiet hope in her movements, a trembling anticipation that made her seem fragile, yet incredibly brave. Every so often, she would take a deep breath and whisper something to Bear, words only she could understand. Perhaps a secret, perhaps a prayer, perhaps an encouragement to keep moving forward. The world around her was alive with noise, laughter, footsteps, distant announcements, the clatter of luggage, but she seemed to exist in a bubble of stillness, focused entirely on the approaching train. The bustling crowd felt distant, almost irrelevant. Every hurried adult, every distracted commuter, only heightened the sense of urgency in her small frame, as if the world itself was holding its breath with her. Passers-by glanced at her with curiosity, some offering gentle smiles or kind nods, but she barely noticed. Her attention was fixed, her heart tethered to a single expectation she could not yet name. There was a quiet determination in her movements, the kind of resilience that only children carry when they know, deep down, that this moment could change everything. She clutched the teddy bear tighter, a small tremor running through her as she whispered again, her voice barely audible over the station noise. The bear was her anchor, yes, but it was hope that truly drove her forward, hope that someone would appear, someone who had been absent for so long yet was somehow still a part of her. And then, from the corner of her eye, she caught sight of the train slowing down, its wheels screeching softly against the tracks. Her tiny hands tightened around the bear, and her heart skipped a beat. A surge of hope, sharp and sudden, lit up her face. The kind of hope that could make a child forget fear for just a moment, that could make her take a bold step into the unknown. She took a tentative step forward, then another, each one deliberate, yet infused with the urgency of years of waiting she didn't fully understand. Her small shoes scuffed softly against the platform, but she didn't care. Every movement was a silent plea, a declaration that she was ready for whatever or whoever was coming. She didn't know that the man stepping off the train, weary from years of battles overseas, had no idea he was about to meet the most important person in his life. She didn't know that her small, careful steps toward him were the first threads of connection that would change both their lives forever. And as she lifted her eyes to scan the crowd once more, a mixture of fear and anticipation in her gaze, the world seemed to narrow until it consisted of only one possibility, the moment she had been waiting for, her heart silently whispering, "I hope it's you." The train slowed to a gentle stop, its wheels hissing softly against the tracks. James Miller stepped off, his boots echoing against the platform. Each tap grounded him in a world that felt both familiar and strange. His eyes scanned the crowd, searching, adjusting to the flow of life he had been absent from for so long. Faces blurred past, stranger smiles and hurried steps creating a mosaic of normalcy he had not experienced in years. And then he noticed her, a small figure standing alone, clutching something to her chest. A little girl, her golden hair catching the light in soft strands, her eyes wide and searching. She looked fragile, yet there was an unmistakable resolve in the way she held herself, a quiet courage that made James pause in the middle of the bustling platform. For a fleeting moment, he thought she was just a stranger, another child lost in the crowd. But something in the way she looked at him, something deeper, almost instinctual, made him freeze. Recognition, or perhaps intuition, stirred in his chest, a flicker of a feeling he couldn't yet name. The girl, Lily, noticed him at the same time. Her tiny chest rose and fell quickly, her grip on the teddy bear tightening as if drawing courage from its worn fur. She tilted her head slightly, a mixture of curiosity, hope, and fear in her gaze. Every second seemed stretched, as if the world had slowed to accommodate the weight of what was about to happen. James took another careful step forward, drawn to her in a way that defied logic. His eyes searched for clues, for something familiar, and found them reflected in her innocence and anticipation. The crowd around them blurred into insignificance. Conversations, laughter, the clatter of luggage, all faded until there was only the small figure and the man beginning to realize that life was on the verge of shifting forever. She took another step toward him, hesitant but unrelenting, and James felt an odd mixture of fear and hope. He wondered how a single child could carry so much weight, how a moment so small could feel so monumental. He didn't know her name, didn't know why his chest tightened with recognition, but he could not look away. The train's rumble and the murmur of the station became background noise to the silent dialogue forming between them. Their eyes locked, and James saw in her gaze something he had never seen before, an unspoken certainty, a quiet insistence that this encounter was meant to happen. And in that heartbeat, suspended between past and present, James realized he was standing at the edge of a life-altering moment. One small girl, alone yet fearless, was about to unravel the careful walls he had built around his heart. And neither of them knew it yet, but in the next few seconds, everything would change. The little girl's steps quickened. Her tiny shoes tapped against the platform with a rhythm that seemed to echo through James's chest. Each step carried hope, fear, and something deeper she could not yet name. The worn teddy bear hugged her chest seemed almost alive with her anticipation, a silent witness to the courage she summoned from somewhere deep inside. James froze, unsure what to do. He wanted to call out, to ask her name, to steady the strange rush of emotion swelling in his chest. But before he could form the words, she was running straight toward him. "Daddy!" The word cut through the station like a spark in a quiet room. James's breath caught, his heart skipping several beats. For a moment, he couldn't breathe, couldn't process what he had just heard. The word echoed in his ears, carrying with it the weight of years he had not known existed. "Daddy," she repeated, her voice trembling, but filled with a fearless certainty. Her little arms stretched out, reaching for him as if she had been waiting all her life for this single connection. Time seemed to stretch, the bustling station fading into a blur around them, the clamor of travelers, the distant announcements. Even the hiss of the train wheels became background to this one electric moment. James felt his knees weaken, a strange mix of disbelief and overwhelming emotion taking hold. He took a cautious step forward, then another, afraid that moving too quickly might shatter the fragile miracle unfolding before him. But she didn't hesitate. She ran straight into his arms, burying her face against his chest, and the world shifted. James's hands trembled as they lifted to hold her fully. He brushed strands of golden hair from her face, feeling the warmth of her tiny body press against him. For years, he had faced danger, witnessed the fragility of life, and stared down fear in its rawest forms. But nothing prepared him for this. This pure, unfiltered love, this instant bond between a father and a daughter who had waited so long to find him. The little girl clung to him, trusting him completely, and James held her with equal ferocity, afraid to let go. He could feel the rhythm of her heartbeat, small and steady, yet somehow grounding him in a way that nothing else had. He whispered her name softly, almost afraid that speaking aloud might break the spell. "Lily, I'm here. I'm here for you." For a long moment, they remained like that, locked in a quiet embrace, a lifeline that transcended words and years lost. Around them, the world moved on, but they were suspended in the singular certainty of connection, of recognition, of a love that had waited patiently through time. And in that embrace, James realized something profound. Every battle fought, every lonely night overseas, every sacrifice had led him here, to this instant, to this small, perfect miracle. A daughter who had waited, a life renewed, a heart finally home. James held Lily in his arms, still reeling from the shock of her words, when a familiar voice cut through the murmur of the station, gentle but commanding. "James." He turned slowly, his heart catching in his throat. There she was, Emily, the woman he had once loved, whose memory had lingered in quiet corners of his mind during long nights overseas. Time had softened the sharp edges of her face, but her presence still carried the same quiet strength and warmth he remembered. Her eyes shifted toward Lily, still cradled in his arms, and a soft, almost hesitant smile curved her lips. She took a careful step forward, as if testing the waters of this long-awaited reunion. Her hands were folded lightly in front of her, betraying a nervousness she tried to hide. "This is Lily," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. She's your daughter." The word struck James like a bolt of lightning. He froze, the world around him fading into a blur of noise and motion. His mind raced, trying to reconcile what he saw with what he heard. A daughter? His daughter? How could this be real? Emily stepped closer, her voice quiet but unwavering. "I didn't tell you before because I wanted to protect you. And I wanted to give her a chance at a normal life, away from the chaos of your deployments. But now, I think it's time you met her to know the truth." James looked down at Lily, still holding on to him with absolute trust, her tiny hands clutching his shirt as though she had always known he would catch her. The pieces began to fall into place. The hope in her eyes, the way she had instinctively run to him, the silent certainty in her little smile. She had been waiting for him, even without fully understanding why. He swallowed hard, the lump in his throat making it difficult to speak. Words felt inadequate, incapable of expressing the torrent of emotions coursing through him. He opened his mouth, but only a trembling whisper came out. I can't believe." Emily nodded, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know, it's a lot to take in, but she's yours. She's been waiting for you, James." She gestured a photo in Lily's hand. She knows your face. I've shown her your picture every night. James's gaze returned to Lily, to the way she had reached out to him without hesitation, as if their bond had existed long before they had ever met. Her small heartbeat pressed against his chest, steady and alive, and he realized with a clarity that shook him that the hardest battles he had fought had led him to this, the most profound and unexpected victory of his life. He bent slightly, wrapping his arms more securely around Lily, whispering promises to a little girl who had already given him everything. And in that moment, James understood the truth he had been searching for all his life. Love, patience, and presence could heal even the deepest wounds, and the family he had never known was finally within his grasp. James knelt slowly, bringing himself down to Lily's level. She looked up at him, her wide eyes shimmering with curiosity, trust, and a quiet vulnerability that made his chest tighten. The little hand that had reached for him moments ago now rested gently in his, warm and soft against his weathered fingers. For a long moment, he simply stared at her, drinking in every detail. The soft sweep of her golden hair, the faint freckles across her nose, the way her small shoulders trembled slightly as if testing whether this connection was real. It was almost surreal. He had imagined meeting her countless times in his mind, but nothing had prepared him for this. The reality of holding a daughter he had never known, a life he had been absent from for years. "Daddy," she whispered again, her voice trembling, but filled with an unshakable certainty that left him breathless. James lifted her gently into his arms, careful not to startle her, and felt a rush of emotions he couldn't name. Relief, awe, wonder, and a pang of regret for every missed moment all collided in his chest. Her tiny heartbeat pressed against his, steady and unyielding, grounding him in a way nothing else ever could. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering as if memorizing her. Every curve of her features seemed imbued with an innocence and strength that left him in quiet awe. He wanted to speak, to say everything at once, to explain his absence, to apologize, to promise that he would never leave her again. But the words felt fragile, almost too heavy to release. Instead, he held her, allowing the silence to carry what words could not. Lily pressed closer, her small arms wrapping around his neck as if to anchor him to her world. And in that embrace, James felt a clarity he had never known before. The wars, the distance, the endless nights of longing, they had all led him here, to this small, perfect moment of connection. She pulled back slightly, just enough to look into his eyes, her own gaze steady, filled with an unspoken message. "I know you, even if you don't yet know me." James's throat tightened. He whispered her name softly, almost a prayer. "Lily, I'm here. I'm here for you." Her lips curved into a shy, tentative smile, and he felt a warmth bloom inside him that chased away the shadows of years spent apart. Each giggle, each tentative movement, each trusting glance became a thread, weaving them together into a bond stronger than any battlefield victory he had ever known. Emily watched from a short distance, her heart full as she saw the first fragile moments of father and daughter merging into something real, something enduring. James held Lily a little tighter, whispering promises into her hair, letting the quiet hum of the station fade until all that existed was a small, extraordinary miracle in his arms. And as he finally allowed himself to take it in, to feel the full weight and beauty of what had just happened, James realized that some victories are not won in battlefields. They are won in embraces, in trust, and in the quiet, unwavering love of a child who has waited her entire life for you. As James held Lily in his arms, the warmth of her tiny body pressed against him. The world around him seemed to blur into a soft haze. The station noises, the footsteps, distant chatter, and the rolling of luggage faded into insignificance. All that remained was the overwhelming awareness of what he had missed. Years of birthdays, first steps, bedtime stories, scraped knees, and quiet whispers that he had never been there to witness. He thought about all the moments he had imagined sharing, the milestones he had longed to be present for, only to have them slip away into memory. Letters left unsent, phone calls never made, evenings spent in foreign barracks or under alien stars. Each thought pressed upon his chest like a weight he had carried unknowingly, each one a reminder of time that could never be reclaimed. Yet, as he looked down at Lily, her trust and warmth shining up at him, that weight began to shift. It didn't vanish. It would never vanish. But it transformed into a kind of gravity that grounded him, reminded him that the years lost were not the end of their story. She was here. She had waited. And now they could start again. James's mind wandered to all the moments he would now have a chance to create. Mornings filled with laughter, quiet afternoons reading together, evenings telling stories under dim lights, the gentle rituals of father and daughter discovering each other. It was daunting, the realization of how much time had been stolen, yet it was exhilarating to know that the rest of their lives could be lived fully. Emily stood nearby, silent yet present, her soft smile reflecting the relief and pride she felt in watching James reconnect with Lily. She had shielded this reunion, nurtured it quietly, and now she witnessed unfold with the grace of moments that had been carefully preserved. James closed his eyes for a moment, letting himself breathe in the reality of her presence. He could feel the rhythm of her tiny heartbeat against his chest, steady and reassuring. A reminder that this was real, that she was real, and that he could finally be the father she deserved. He whispered promises he didn't know he had the courage to voice before, letting each word linger in the quiet air. I'll be here. I'll never leave. I'll make every day count. Lily's small fingers curled around his hand as if she understood, as if her trust was the bridge over the years they had lost. In that moment, James realized something profound. The past, with all its regrets and missed opportunities, was heavy, yes, but it no longer defined them. It had become a foundation, a lesson, a reminder of the fragility and preciousness of time. And now, with Lily in his arms, he could build something new, something stronger, something unbroken. And for the first time in years, James allowed himself to hope. Not just wish, not just imagine, but truly hope. That the years ahead would be filled with the love, laughter, and connection he had longed for. One moment, one embrace, one heartbeat at a time, they could reclaim what had been lost. Section 8. First family moments fixed. The crowd at the station slowly dispersed, leaving James, Lily, and Emily in a bubble of quiet intimacy. For the first time in years, James felt the simple, grounding joy of being part of something larger than himself. A family. It was fragile, yes, but alive, and in that moment it felt unshakable. He held Lily's small hand as they walked toward the station exit, noticing the subtle details that made her who she was. The way she tilted her head when thinking, the faint freckles across her nose, the little hum she made when she was excited. Every movement, every expression seemed magnified in importance, a reminder that these were the moments he had missed, and that now he could never take them for granted. Emily followed at a careful distance, giving them space while still ensuring the moment remained safe. Her presence was a quiet reassurance, a gentle reminder that this new chapter would require patience, understanding, and the careful weaving together lives that had once been separate. They paused by a small kiosk, where Lily tugged at James's sleeve, pointing at a chocolate bar she wanted. James chuckled softly, buying it without hesitation. He watched as she savored each bite, eyes sparkling with delight, and felt an unfamiliar swell of pride and tenderness. It was a small moment, perhaps insignificant to anyone else, but monumental to him. A tiny glimpse into the life they were beginning to build together. They continued through the station, hand in hand, and James noticed how much he wanted to remember every detail. The texture of her hair as he brushed it back, the soft sound of her laughter, the way she leaned slightly toward him as if seeking reassurance in a world she hadn't fully understood before. Each of these simple interactions became a brick in the foundation of trust and love that was forming between them. Emily's eyes followed them, her heart swelling as she observed James adjusting to fatherhood, tentative yet committed, as he discovered the joys of small, ordinary moments. She knew that these moments, these seemingly mundane interactions, were building the bond that years apart could not erase. As they stepped out into the sunlight, James felt a deep sense of possibility. This was only the beginning. Mornings of shared breakfast, afternoons of playful mischief, evenings filled with stories and gentle lullabies. Every laugh, every question, every quiet glance would become part of the tapestry of their life together. And as Lily skipped ahead, turned to glance back at him with an innocent, trusting smile, James understood something vital. The hardest battles of his past had brought him here, to these small moments that were shaping a new future. Moments like these, full of laughter, discovery, and the delicate threads of love, were victories far greater than any he had known before. In that golden afternoon light, James realized that the family he had longed for was no longer just a dream. It was real, tangible, and waiting for him to step fully into it. And with every small gesture, every laugh shared, and every hand held, he felt the weight of the past lift, replaced by the promise of life they could build together day by day. The days that followed were slow, quiet, and full of small discoveries. James watched Lily with a mixture of awe and cautious curiosity, learning the rhythm of her life. The way she wrinkled her nose when frustrated, the tilt of her head when she was thinking, the soft hums and giggles that punctuated her playtime. Each tiny observation became a window into her world, a world he'd been absent from but now longed to understand fully. Every new detail brought both joy and a twinge of regret. He remembered all the milestones he had missed, the first words, the first steps, the first scraped knees that required comfort and care. And yet, the wonder in her eyes, the trust in her small hand gripping his, reminded him that they had been given a chance to start anew. Lily, for her part, explored him with the innocence of a child meeting someone familiar yet unfamiliar all at once. She asked questions, innocent, curious, sometimes random, like what his favorite color was or whether he liked dinosaurs. And behind each question was a quiet yearning to understand this man who was suddenly her father. James found himself answering slowly at first, unsure what to reveal, and then with more openness than he had allowed anyone in years. He shared stories of his childhood, days spent climbing trees, nights under starlit skies, lessons learned the hard way, and even little anecdotes from faraway lands where he'd been deployed. Lily listened, wide-eyed, absorbing every word as if it were a treasure she had been waiting to discover. He began to anticipate her quirks. The way she always tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear when concentrating, the soft shuffle of her feet before asking a question, the little sighs she made when proud of herself. Each observation made him feel closer to her, made the gap of years apart shrink ever so slightly. Emily watched quietly from a distance, a soft, knowing smile on her lips. She had seen the hesitant steps of a father learning his role, and the cautious but eager steps of a child accepting him. She knew this was more than a reunion. It was a careful weaving of two lives, once separate, now converging in a tapestry of love and trust. By the end of each day, as James tucked Lily into bed, listening to the gentle rhythm of her breathing, he realized something profound. Learning each other was not simply about understanding the past. It was about building a shared future, stitch by stitch, laugh by laugh, question by question. Each small interaction became a promise, unspoken yet deeply felt, that he would be there, that he would protect, guide, and love her fully. And in the quiet of those nights, holding the tiny hand in his, James whispered to himself a vow that would carry him through every challenge ahead, that he would never take these moments for granted, that he would cherish each day, and that the love he felt now, for a daughter he had just met, yet somehow had always known, would shape the life they were beginning to create together. The evening sky stretched across the horizon in streaks of orange and gold, casting long shadows over the quiet garden where James and Emily sat on a worn bench. Lily ran ahead, her laughter carried on the breeze, a sound that made James's chest ache with a strange mixture of joy and longing. He watched her, mesmerized, and allowed himself to be carried back into memories long tucked away, memories that came unbidden, like old photographs resurfacing from the corners of his mind. He remembered the days when he and Emily had walked hand in hand through parks much like this one, the sun spilling warmth across their faces, the world shrinking to the space they occupied together. He remembered the late-night conversations, their whispers under starry skies, and the dreams they had sketched together, naive yet beautiful. And then he remembered the absence, the long stretches of time, the distance, the letters that went unanswered, the silent rooms waiting for him to return. Emily's voice broke through the haze of nostalgia. I thought I was protecting you, protecting us. But maybe I only protected the pain for a little while, she said softly, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and hope. James nodded slowly, letting the words settle in the quiet evening. I've thought about you, about us, every day. I wondered if I would ever get a chance to see this, he said, glancing at Lily, who had paused mid-run to wave at him, her small hand lifted like a beacon of trust. To be a family. The memories mingle with the present. The smell of fresh grass, the gentle rustle of leaves, the golden light brushing Lily's hair, and he realized that even the pain of absence had a purpose. It had led him here, to this exact moment, to a connection that was deeper than time or distance could erase. Emily reached out, her hand brushing lightly against his, a silent acknowledgement of all that had been lost and all that could be rebuilt. "She knows you now, James," she whispered. "She trusts you, and that's all that matters. We have today and tomorrow and every day after that." James let the weight of her words sink in. The past was heavy, yes, filled with regrets and what-ifs, but it no longer dictated the future. In Lily's laughter, in her trusting gaze, in the simple act of holding her hand, he found a bridge between what had been and what could be. Each shared smile, each gentle touch, each quiet conversation became a thread, weaving their lives together anew. He leaned back slightly, eyes following Lily as she ran in circles, her joy infectious. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to fully inhabit the present, to feel the warmth of family and the quiet power of love rediscovered. The memories no longer weighed him down. They guided him, reminding him that even the most difficult roads could lead to unexpected and beautiful destinations. And in that golden evening light, as the sun dipped lower and shadows stretched long across the grass, James understood a truth he had long sought, that some battles, no matter how harsh, are meant to prepare us for victories far greater than we ever imagined. The family he had yearned for, the connection he had longed to reclaim, was here, alive, and waiting for him to embrace it fully. The quiet of the evening wrapped around them like a soft blanket, carrying a sense of stillness that seemed almost sacred. James knelt beside Lily's small bed, the dim glow of a bedside lamp casting gentle shadows across the room. The little girl's eyelids drooped, heavy with sleep, but her tiny hand found his, gripping it with trust so complete that it took his breath away. He looked down at her, tracing the soft curve of her cheek with finger, marveling at the delicate rise and fall of her chest as she breathed. She was so small, so fragile in body, yet her presence carried a strength he had never encountered before. In that instant, he understood something he hadn't fully grasped. This little girl was now his world, and the responsibility of being her father was both overwhelming and beautiful beyond measure. "I'm here, Lily," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. "I promise I'll always be here for you, no matter what." Her small eyes fluttered open, and a sleepy smile curved her lips. "Promise?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper but full of expectation. "Promise," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "I'll never miss another moment if I can help it. I'll listen to you, play with you, teach you, and love you every single day." James's mind wandered to the years he had spent away. The birthdays, the scraped knees, the quiet nights when she had needed comfort he could not give. The weight of those lost moments pressed on him, a silent ache that mingled with the exhilaration of finally being here. But as he looked into Lily's trusting eyes, he felt the past shift from a source of regret into a reminder of the depth of what he now held in his arms. He brushed a stray strand of hair from her forehead, letting his fingertips linger as if memorizing every detail. Lily nestled closer, pressing her small body against his chest, and he felt a surge of determination unlike anything he had ever known. He would protect her, guide her, and love her fiercely. Nothing would deter him from this promise. Emily watched from the doorway, silent, letting the moment breathe. She had given him a second chance, not just to be part of Lily's life, but to embrace the family they could finally be. Her eyes glistened as she witnessed James quietly taking the mantle of fatherhood, his heart wide open despite the years of absence. James leaned down slightly, whispering her name softly, again and again, as if repeating it could anchor them both in this new beginning. He thought of the mornings they would share, the afternoons of laughter and play, the evenings filled with stories and quiet comfort. Each imagined moment became a promise he intended to fulfill stitch by stitch, day by day. And in that promise, spoken in the stillness of a room lit by gentle lamplight, James realized something profound. The hardest battles he had fought, overseas, in foreign lands, and within his own heart, had led him here, to this moment, to the greatest victory of all. A daughter, a family, a love that required no medals or accolades, Only presence, devotion, and the courage to embrace every heartbeat as it came. After hours of talking that stretched long into the night at a quiet cafe near the station, James had accepted Emily's hesitant but sincere offer to stay in their guest room. It was a step into the unknown for all of them, but the only step that felt right. The morning sun spilled gently through the window of that unfamiliar room, painting the walls in warm, golden hues. James awoke with start, the silence of the still house feeling unfamiliar, yet deeply peaceful. His first thought was of her. He moved quietly down the hall, pausing at her doorway. There she was. Lily lay curled in her own bed, her small chest rising and falling in the rhythm of deep, peaceful sleep. He watched from the threshold, memorizing every detail. The curve of her cheek, the gentle sweep of her hair across the pillow. She stirred, stretching her small arms, blinking sleep from her eyes. When she noticed him, a flicker of happy recognition crossed her face, quickly blooming into a wide, joyful smile. "Good morning, Daddy," she exclaimed, hopping out of bed to run into his waiting arms. James scooped her up, holding her close and swaying gently as laughter spilled from them both. The sound echoed through the quiet house, and a moment later, they heard the soft click of a mug being set down and footsteps from below. He carried Lily downstairs, and as they turned into the kitchen, he found Emily there, a soft smile on her face as she watched him enter. They moved together in the warm kitchen, where the aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the morning light. Each small task, pouring cereal, preparing breakfast, felt like a sacred ritual of presence, a demonstration of the love he could finally give. As they sat together, sharing quiet conversation and laughter, James realized this was the true beginning. The past had shaped him, but the future was theirs to write. And as Lily leaned against him, smiling contentedly, he understood the truth he had long searched for, that after every long journey, the greatest victory is a simple morning like this, full of light connection and profound peace of being exactly where you belong. And so, in the warm light of a new morning, James found the greatest victory of his life wasn't on a battlefield, but in a simple kitchen, surrounded by the quiet peace of a family he never knew he had. Some journeys end exactly where they were always meant to begin. If this story found a home in your heart, then you know your next chapter with us is just a subscribe away. Follow the journey on Heartfelt Tales TV, where every tale is a journey back to what matters most. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.